Good morning, it's Sunday, 6 a.m. is when I do the live stream. Probably doing it for somebody, a friend, a coworker, family member, a neighbor, maybe somebody I met while I was working. My watch actually is a conversation starter with some people because when I tilt my watch up, I just have a bunch of random pictures of my yard. I don't know, it's kind of stupid, but I do it because I was just testing out doing a custom watch face, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So some people will see my watch when we're doing paperwork or doing whatever, and they'll ask me, hey, is that your lawn? And I'm like, yeah. And we'll start talking about it and stuff like that, and they'll say something about, hey, my watch, or I'm sorry, my lawn. Man, I really could use some help. I don't know what's going on there. So anyways, I talk to these guys, I tell them about my channel, and my channel is just for, really information, trying to help people out, especially new people, with real good information on what to do in your yard. Because I know it gets confusing out there with all the information on YouTube and TikTok and everything like that. And it gets really hard to realize, to understand what's really real and what's not, or what's just overkill or whatever. And I got sucked into that trap when I started doing my yard. So I did a lot of research on my own. I've been listening to this soil scientist, this guy that's got a doctorate in soil science, and he just knows a lot about what's going on in your soil, how your turf grass works with the different soils and nutrients, and all that sort of stuff. So I really started learning from that because I just wanted to have a nice yard, but man, I really didn't want to spend a lot of time out there. I didn't want to spend a lot of money. So I did the research, and then I realized that there's just a lot of really bad info out there. So we're going to talk about the science behind a lot of things, maybe some things you thought were real. We'll talk about how they're not real. It's coming up on the fall season, and there's a lot of things to do in your yard to get ready for attacking Poa annua. There's some things you can do, reseeding, overseeding, redoing a yard. I actually have a neighbor. We've been working on this since April, because in April I talked to him about doing weed prevention and control, Poa annua and all that kind of stuff. And I had him do a pre-emergent. And then a couple of weeks later, when I started doing my other neighbor's yard, he started talking to me about redoing his yard. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, let's go ahead and do that. And then I realized, I was like, oh yeah, you put the pre-emergent down, didn't you? And he was like, yeah. So it was like, yeah, we can't do that right now in the spring. But I tell you what, in the fall, we'll take care of that. And this will give you a lot of time to do some research on what kind of seeds you want to do, how much area you want to do, and all that kind of stuff. And we decided on doing a complete kill off of his yard. So we're going to talk about that a little bit this episode. We're also going to just go over some of the things that have been going on in my yard. I have some really good info on some fact-based watering schedules. There's a lot of, I guess, I don't know if you call it myth or just, it's old information. And I guess the new research, probably about 8 to 10 different research papers that a referee that I was listening to the information on, and I was really surprised on the information that I learned from that. So we're going to talk about that. I got a bunch of slides going on in here, just things in general. So we're just going to get started and go right after it, and we'll just see where it takes us. I don't know where to start here. So let's just talk about spring and some renovation real quick. I'm just going to throw this video up of, this is me doing my son's yard in April. You know, he just wanted to do like, it's really like an overseed, but you know, we really kind of attacked it and did a bunch of things that you just basically do when you're doing a reseed, you're renovating your yard, those sorts of things. These are the sort of processes you can go through. So in doing my neighbor Doug's yard, you know, we're not quite going to do exactly what we're doing here. This was just a quick, easy, you know, process. With Doug's yard, we're going to go ahead and kill it off. So I'm going to start with glyphosate. And I've already had him mow it short. And today, actually, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to spray it. And I'm going to use my Honda lawnmower rotary. It cuts at 3/4 of an inch, really low, lower than most lawnmowers. So I'm going to get that cut really low. I'm going to spray it with a real heavy concentration of some glyphosate and get that killed off. We're going to kill it off. We're going to kill it off. We're going to water it to try to get it to rejuvenate. I'll probably add some nitrogen in the mix to help the turf grass absorb and think it's wanting to grow, and then it's actually going to have that hidden glyphosate in there to kill it. So we just want to get everything out of there. He's got a lot of different types of grasses in his yard. So we're going to do that. We're going to mow it. We're going to watch it. We're going to keep mowing it and spraying it. Probably 2, it may be 3, just depends. And I told him in about 6 weeks. I said September 20th, that's maybe 7 weeks. But I said, let's see what the weather's like. If your yard's ready, we could do it sooner, we'll do it sooner. If the temps aren't looking too crazy. You know, in Western Washington, you never know what you're gonna get. You could get an Indian summer where it gets really hot, or you can get just a bunch of rain and get cold. So gonna kind of monitor it starting Labor Day and see where we're at and if we need to get started sooner. You know, the key thing is, you know, you just want a good temperature so you can get some good germination on your seed. He's going to go ahead and go with a Kentucky bluegrass, which, you know, I told him is going to be a little bit slower to establish. Might be a little patchy at first. So just to make sure he gets a good amount of seed. He's actually getting the same seed that I have in my front yard. He really likes the grass. He likes the color. And he likes the Kentucky bluegrass. You know what? Kentucky bluegrass is a great grass. So we're going to go ahead and do that. He's going to get it ordered. And then when he, you know, I know my video over here is showing my son Justin's yard and doing a water setup and all that kind of stuff. And we're not doing any spring. He's already got an in-ground sprinkler system, so we're good there. So hopefully everything should work out. But what we're going to do is we're going to take my aeration blade, my verticutting blade, whatever you want to call it, scarifier. Everybody calls it something different. I look at it as an aerification blade because I use it to dig down through the grass into the soil and loosen that up to get the seed down in there. Now, we're also going to add some topsoil over there, and we're going to level it and, you know, get it back in shape, you know, with the moles and the settling and everything like that that we get. It just needs a good level. So we're going to get a good topsoil over here. I'm trying to find a new company to provide that. And we're going to level it. We're going to drop some seed on it. Rake that in, and we will kind of give you a little example here, fast forward in what we're doing, because, you know, so this is basically me here at Justin's house, basically using that aeration blade, and it's kind of like a really shallow rototill, if you want to look at it that way. Because it's just loosening up the soil and the dirt on that top layer. You know, you don't need to do aeration and all this kind of stuff. Now, if you have a really compacted soil, yeah, you might want to aerate or rototill, something like that. But you know, realistically, if you loosen the top layer, put some good soil on top of it, and put your seed down on that bed, it's going to work just fine. But if you do have a lot of compaction, clay soil, those sorts of things, you know, doing an aeration is going to help. It's going to help a lot. If you rototill and you till in some good loose soil, maybe a more sandier type soil. I know out here we get a 3-way topsoil. It's got compost, it's got sand, and it's got, you know, dirt or whatever. And my last batch had a lot of rocks, but that's a whole nother story. So, you know, you just really want to get that level. You know, this is us leveling his backyard right here. I'm using my level rake and just kind of getting it all smoothed out and stuff like that, just kind of getting it ready. And then we're just going to drop some seed on this. And then actually after I rolled it and got it all flat, I did rake it loose so it had some nice area there for the seed to drop down into. And then we rolled it and we compacted it. And real quick right there, I just was spraying Tenacity. I think Tenacity is a great way to start doing your seeding project because it's going to do a couple of things. It's going to prevent weeds. It's going to kill weeds if you're not doing this level of a kill or a renovation. If you have exposed weeds and things like that, the Tenacity is going to kill those weeds. And that's kind of what we're looking for here because we didn't kill any of the grass, old grass or anything like that. We just basically did it overseed. So Tenacity, I use it a lot in my yard because it kills bent grass, and bent grass is a big problem in my yard. So I do that to take care of that bent grass, getting into my Kentucky bluegrass and all that stuff for my putting green. So laid the seed down, rolled it, or raked it, rolled it, and I put peat moss on top of all my reseeds to help keep the moisture in and all that sort of stuff. You know, and then just water it. I usually recommend watering 4 times a day for just a couple of minutes each time. You just want to keep that seed moist and hope that your weather's good. You know, you want some good mild temperatures, you know, nothing too hot, nothing too cold. You know, your seed needs to germinate. In this picture here, you know, it shows kind of some of that Tenacity bleaching that kind of happened and the killing of some weeds right here, all right up in here. Got a lot of, I don't know what kind of weed that is. I'm not a weed expert. I'm not an expert in anything, to tell you the truth. I just like nice grass and I'm just trying to learn about it. So that's really a renovation in a nutshell. You know, there's no real science to it. No hardcoreness to it, unless you got a really huge yard and you got a lot of compacted soil. You just need to be prepared. And, you know, we're to that point right now to where if you're going to do it, you need to start making some decisions, what you want to do. You just want to do an overseed. You just want to do a light redo like we did here where we loosen the soil. Do you need to rent a rototiller? Do you need to rent a sod cutter? Do you want to cut all that sod out? That's what I did a couple of years ago. I yanked all my grass out. I used the sod cutter. I cut it all out. I got rid of everything that I had in there, but I did kill it first. You know, I really went to town when I redid my yard the first time about 3 years ago. And I got all the root clumps out. I got everything. I just got it down to good dirt, good soil. I mean, I took a lot of rocks out, that sort of thing. My backyard, not so much. So anyways, that's a renovation kind of in a nutshell. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but the main things is you need to have a good bed for the seed to make good contact with the soil. It's generally pretty good to put some peat moss over the top of it. You don't have to. If you want to do a real economical type of a reseed, you know, just put your seed down, rake it in, roll it. You can rent a roller, I think, at Home Depot, wherever, Lowe's, wherever your rental place is. that you like to use, for like $10, $20 a day or something like that. It's really cheap. And that's really going to help in your success of getting that seed to grow. But once you get it all, compacted and rolled in and all that stuff, water. Don't overwater, don't underwater. Just keep it moist. And like I say, if you don't have a sprinkler system, there's many different types of timers you can get for your hose bib. I have one on my side yard here that I use for watering my side little patch of grass that I use for repairs. And I really like it because now I don't have to think about it. I don't have to, turn it on, set a timer to turn it off, because man, every time I turn that sprinkler on before I had that timer, I would forget about it and that thing would run. My neighbor across the street, he has a bad habit of leaving his sprinkler on for 12, 24, he turns it on at night and it ends up running all night. So, let me see here. So I'm just gonna show you my mow here. I've done a lot of things on my front and backyard in the last few weeks. And I'm gonna go over just a few things while I have this video up of me mowing. I went out of town last weekend. I've been really busy at work, so keeping up on mowing has been really tough for me. And, having a putting green with bent grass that grows like crazy, and then my Kentucky bluegrass, I cut it at 1/4 of an inch, so that's really short. Mowing it after a week of it just in serious growth, it is kind of tough. But look here, so my lawn is really long here, and look at this mowing here. You can tell, at 1/4 of an inch, you lose a lot of color. You can maintain some of that color, but you lose a little bit of that deep green the shorter you cut your lawn. So that's something you want to keep in mind when you're doing your renovation or you're deciding on what lawnmower to buy. The taller it grows, generally the darker green you're going to get out of it. I like my lawn cut low, so I cut it low. And you can kind of see here from this up here, I didn't mow this area. So this is kind of a contrasting difference of the difference between 1/4 of an inch, and that's probably easily 1/2 an inch right there. But the taller you go, the darker green you're going to get. So, and it's going to be easier to maintain that green. So I don't want you to be confused by why my grass looks a little lighter green. And this actually here doesn't really show the actual deep green color I have. This is high noon that I'm recording here. I don't change my brightness and stuff like that like some of these YouTube channels do. I mean, there's one guy I watch, his brightness is so low, you can barely even see what's really going on, but it makes your grass look really green. This is just an overhead view. This is my backyard. I never took care of it until this year. I started working on getting it looking good and green. Still working on it. It's a work in progress. It's kind of fighting me on low mowing. I'm now cutting it at 1/4 of an inch. And some of the new grass I put in back there, the red creeping fescue, it's really fighting me. And that's fine. If it doesn't like it, it can die. I'll put something else in there. Down here on the bottom is where I'm talking about. And I have some slides I'm going to show you on some of the things I've done to take care of weeds. I've sprayed tenacity back here. This actually was just a week ago. This was Monday. And so if you saw my last video where I was showing you the spraying of tenacity and the damage that it did to my red creeping fescue, but also the damage it did to the weeds. So here you see it's actually recovering really, really nice. I had some bad either brown patch or I think it was dollar spot actually. And I'm going to show you the recovery on that here in just a few seconds. I just wanted to get into real quick some of the things that we've learned over the past few weeks on my channel, we've learned that gypsum, calcium sulfate doesn't lower your pH. Sulfate does not lower your pH, as a lot of people mention or say. They think just because it's sulfate, it's sulfur, and it lowers your pH, and that's actually inaccurate. Sulfate has been, I forget what the process, oxidized, I guess, would be the process. The oxygen molecules and all this scientific sort of stuff kind of is happening that makes the difference between sulfate and sulfur. Basically, it just doesn't have the right molecular structure to lower your pH like sulfur does. Sulfur is going to lower the pH in your soil. So when you're adding an iron product that's got sulfur, that's going to lower your pH. Ammonium sulfate, it doesn't lower the pH in your lawn because of the sulfate. That's just what a lot of people say, and it's not accurate. We learned that there's no reason to add a triple product of any sort. There's no reason to add any product with high phosphorus or high potassium, because your turf grass is not going to uptake it in a manner that you think it's going to uptake it, just because you have a lot of phosphorus available in your soil for your plant to uptake. The grass is only going to take up nutrients in a 4:1:2 ratio. That's 4 nitrogen 4, phosphorus 1, potassium 2. So your nitrogen is going to drive the uptake of the plant's ability to take up these other nutrients. So like I'm saying, if you're adding any kind of 10-10-10, 18-18-18, 17-17-17, whatever, even if it's a, I don't know, I'm just throwing out random numbers, but 12 nitrogen, 20 phosphorus, and a 10 potassium, that would be basically a fertilizer you probably add to a flowering plant, because flowering plants like phosphorus for blooms and that sort of thing. And a lot of people just think that because they're adding phosphorus, and phosphorus helps the root development, that the phosphorus is just creating all this root growth and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, it does help with some root growth, but grass it isn't a flower. It doesn't absorb phosphorus like people want you to think. They think you need to add a bunch of phosphorus for root growth, and it's just not true, because your plant's only going to take up as much nitrogen that is taken up to phosphorus and potassium in a 4:1:2 ratio, 4:1:2. I hope that kind of explains it to you, to help you understand why you don't need to be adding a bunch of phosphorus or potassium. Another thing we learned was potassium, it doesn't help prevent anything. Potassium doesn't help prevent heat stress, anything like that. It just helps in the production of an enzyme that your plant needs more of, and creates using potassium to help defend against heat stress. So potassium doesn't prevent heat stress. Some of the other things we learned, I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head here. I've learned so much different stuff. I don't know what I've talked about and what I haven't talked about. So that's my mowing and my front backyard, kind of just a little quick glimpse of that. I'm going to jump down here to my sprinkler page, and I'm just going to pop this up to talk about watering. I'm going to talk about evapotranspiration, just show the map real quick to show where we're at. One of the things I saw in a video this week I was watching was, a guy was asking about, hey, the temperature's hot and all this kind of stuff, how much more water should I be adding? Should I be adding more water and stuff like this? And this guy basically was telling him, no, you don't really need to. I mean, if your grass is suffering, it looks like it's needing a little more water, then yeah, of course, give it a little more water. But, it was a really bad answer, I thought. So the first thing I want to talk about at watering is I talked about just a second ago how I was watching a guy going over some research papers, you know, a soil scientist. He's got a doctorate in soil science. And he goes over research papers and talks about the results and all that sort of stuff. And these are just things that are done on a research-based level. So he was talking about this whole deep and infrequent watering compared to short and frequent watering. And, you know, I know a lot of people think that the deep and infrequent watering is the best method. You know, it helps root growth and all these sorts of things. Get your roots growing down deeper, searching for water and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, this process or this thinking comes from a research paper that was done back in 1948. And I'm not saying the research paper is wrong because it's from 1948 or anything like that, and it's just old information. It's just that's what a study showed from a guy that was really, you know, highly renowned in soil science at the time, and he kind of came up with those results. Well, there's been a lot of papers done on this in the last 20, 30 years, some in the last 20, some in the last 30. And this guy was going over, he went over 8 or 9 different papers. And the general consensus was from all these different papers was short and infrequent watering gave a better turf grass response or a grass response than deep and infrequent. And the actual process of the roots searching and growing for deeper, you know, water and stuff like that just ended up being not true. There were some instances where they had some good results from deep and infrequent, but the short and frequent waterings actually about 90% of the time. And I'm just kind of throwing a number out as kind of generalizing the whole 8, 9 different papers and what they found were. These were all done by different people, all soil scientists, researchers in soil and turf grass. This is only regarding turf grass. And that's just what they found. Now, the reality is it doesn't matter. You know, you can do either one. But you can't just think because somebody says or you hear that deep and infrequent watering is better for root growth. Yeah, you know, it's just not true. And you can get the same, even better results from frequent, you know, more frequent watering. And I've always done that. I feel like whenever I've let my grass go after I water it for like, say 45 minutes and I let it go for a few days, I've always felt like that my grass appearance suffered because of that. So I don't know. I water, you know, as often as I feel my grass needs it. You know, it's cool down here, so I'm not watering as much as I used to. When it's really hot though, I'll put the sprinklers on definitely, you know, in the morning and probably in the afternoon. And I only water for, you know, 5 minutes a cycle. I have 6 different cycles. I have 3,500 square feet. You know, my water bill, some of you might freak out, some of you might not, but my water bill is only like $160 a month. And to me, that's not that much. So, and I water more than twice a day when I'm doing seeding and stuff like that. I'm watering, you know, 4 times a day, a little less each time, but generally a little bit more. And the hotter it is, the more water I'm applying. And I'm just looking to try to keep my grass green. The other thing about your watering and watering schedule is, you know, you got to make sure you have good coverage. You know, I have great coverage in my front yard, and I've worked really hard to get really good coverage. And I really don't have to have the sprinklers on for a really long time to get great coverage and get a good watering in. Now, my backyard's a different story. Because my backyard, I've been adding grass areas, making more grass area. And when I add, I'm adding more sprinklers. I added a new line back there. I used to have just 2 circuits. Now I have 3. What I found out about my problem with my grass germination in my backyard is one area of my lawn, I was just way overwatering. I realized that I had, out of 2 water runs, I had 4 sprinklers hitting this one area in the shade, and it was always so wet. So then I started adjusting my sprinkler patterns so it didn't really cover that area. And I was still getting too wet. So I actually took a sprinkler out, and I'm gonna move it from one corner of my yard, and I'm gonna actually put a smaller sprinkler in the other side of my yard where I've been having some problems. And we'll go ahead and talk about that right now because, like I said, I have been doing some things in my backyard that let's see. So down here is what I'm talking about. This area right here. This is just kind of a progression over a week. I meant to make it longer, but I've been really busy, and I really just don't have a lot of time to be doing videos and editing videos and stuff. But I like to put out information, and I like to do the stream, so that's why I'm doing it. But this was an area where I sprayed Tenacity, and this is the recovery of it. It actually looks really good today, but you can see right now, it's pretty much recovered. This area right here is my red creeping fescue area that's really fighting being cut short and the heat. It's an area that gets a really large amount of sun and heat because I don't get a lot of air circulation back there in that area because it's kind of in the corner. And I'm just going to let this run through real quick, kind of talk about it. This area here, a lot of red creeping fescue up there, and what happened and I knew this was going to happen, Tenacity doesn't really work great with fine fescue. Red creeping fescue is a fine fescue, and so I got a lot of bleaching with it. Now you see my Kentucky bluegrass, I got no bleaching at all. And I don't have that problem with Kentucky bluegrass. I can spray Tenacity every 3 weeks, and my Kentucky bluegrass shows no signs of any Tenacity damage, any bleaching or anything like that. Now this patch down here, I've been having, it's kind of a new patch of grass. Let me see if I can get back to it here. Yeah, so this area right here is what I'm talking about. It's not getting great water coverage, and it's suffering because of it. And I just wanted to kind of show this and talk about it because, so this area right here is an area that I reseeded. It had a tree right here, and I pulled it out, and I planted this grass here. It was going really great, and then all of a sudden we got the heat. And I mentioned before that with the temperatures going up and down all the time here in my area, sometimes I forget to turn my sprinklers back up. And this is what happened. My grass patch area that was going really, really good ended up suffering because of it, because it wasn't getting enough water. And this area in general just doesn't get enough water like the rest of my yard. So this is where I'm going to add a new sprinkler head right up here. And it's just going to be a little small sprinkler head just to kind of cover this whole section right here and help it so it can recover. I wish I had have updated these. This picture is actually about a week and a half old. Right now, this area is looking really good. I've been concentrating on getting water on it. I sprayed it with propiconazole. I felt like I had some dollar spot going on. I showed those pictures in my last video. But I just wanted to kind of show you this area here and what's going on and what the heat can do, and especially on new seed. And this, like I said, this was looking really good about a month ago. and then that whole water thing just kind of killed it. So this is where just monitoring your yard and checking out what's going on with your sprinklers, your watering and stuff like that. There's a guy around the corner from me here. Last September, he redid his yard. I mean, it's a huge patch of grass. I think he put ryegrass in. That's what it looks like. And he did a couple of things, wrong. And yeah, and it's fine. He may not have known, or he may have, thought what he was doing was great and all that kind of stuff. But he basically planted this grass seed in September. He didn't even mow it until mid-April. I think was the first time he mowed it. And when he mowed it, the grass was, I don't even know how long, probably 6 inches. I really don't know. It was really long. It looked nice and green and looked great. Then he mowed it and he had all these bare spots. He had a lot of light colored grass because, the sun wasn't getting down to it and he cut it so low. It just didn't look that great. And it took a long time for it to recover. It's looking really good right now, but he doesn't have a sprinkler system and he's hand watering it. He's putting a sprinkler in and he's just losing the battle with the heat, and he's starting to get some bad areas in his yard. And there's another neighbor that had some sod put in. Sod looked really great about 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago. I don't remember exactly how long it's been. But right now, it looks almost dormant. I mean, it barely has any green in it. It has a lot of brown in it. I don't even know how you spend all the money to have sod put in your front yard and then you don't at least water it and maintain it. I really feel bad for them. I mean, maybe they just wanted to replace the grass. I don't know. I don't know those neighbors. They're pretty far up around the corner, but I pass by it, when I go to work every day, so I see it. So this is why when I did Wilson's yard, I talked to him about watering. Wilson, same thing. We put some ryegrass down in his area that was badly damaged from grubs and moss. The repair that I did fixed all that. There's no grubs, there's no moss. But he's not watering enough. Now it's going to come back and it's going to look great. Once the rain comes back, it's going to be fine and all that kind of stuff. It's going to fill in really good. But he's also got some bad sprinkler coverage, and we've talked about that. And I really want to help get that fixed. And maybe this winter we'll do that. I hate digging trenches, but if I'm going to dig trenches, I'm going to do it in the winter, fall, spring, when the ground is really saturated and really wet, because it's so much easier to dig those trenches. So we're going to work on his water coverage and get his grass going, but it looks really great. It looked great for quite a while until this heat came in, and he's just kind of barely keeping up with keeping the watering on it. So I'm going to move to this. So I want to talk about weeds because September's coming up. Poa annua is a big problem in Western Washington, probably in some of my friends and family's areas too that I know watch and get information. So I talked about Poa annua. I did a really terrible job talking about it when I did a video earlier this year. I'm not no pro YouTube guy or anything like that. I just trying to put out information to help some people out, especially the newer people that really are getting way too much information. And not that it's wrong information or bad information, it's just maybe some information that's just a little overkill. It's maybe more for a hardcore guy. Even the hardcore guys, you don't need to do all this crazy stuff that some of these channels tell you to do, but whatever. So pre-emergent, this is a prodiamine right here. And Do My Own is a great website. I didn't bring it up. I probably should have brought it up so I could show you, but you can search all these different products that people talk about on domyown.com. And the great thing that I like about it is when I'm doing research on something, a product or whatever, they have all the label information, all the, safety data sheets, just all the information you can read to understand more about the product. And, especially for, is this going to work for your grass? Is this not going to work for your grass? Is this going to harm your grass? Is this going to help for what you want to do? Just everything you want to know that's on the label, you can find on this website. Down in the description area, they have all the PDF files of all the information you need to read. And like I said, this is where I go to get all my information, but prodiamine is a good pre-emergent to put down. Now, if you're going to do any kind of overseeding, seeding, anything like that, you can't put this down. Your seed won't, your project will go terrible. It's not, your grass seed won't germinate, you won't get anything to grow. This basically stops the process of weeds getting actual legs to grow. It doesn't necessarily stop weeds in grasses and all those sorts of things from germinating. It basically stops them, I believe it is, from rooting and developing roots. It basically puts like a protective layer down in your soil. So once things start trying to germinate and are germinating and rooting, that it will prevent them from being able to grow any further. So this works good against Poa annua, and you want to get this out early. And we're getting to that time right now for Poa annua. If you want to start preventing, use prodiamine. I've got a couple more things you could use too. But that's not to say that if you are going to do a seeding project, there are products you can use to do your seeding project to help prevent Poa from growing in your yard. Now, if you don't know what Poa annua is, it's just a really light green weed grass that grows, and it pops lots of seeds, and the seeds get down in your soil and they're just laying their bed for the next season. And it's not even necessary that Poa annua seeds will germinate in the next season. Poa annua seeds can stay alive and well in your soil for many years. So just because you have Poa annua this year and you start trying to prevent it, you think you got rid of it, and spring you don't have any come up, doesn't mean that in the fall it won't come up, or whatever. Poa annua out here, it pops almost all year long. It doesn't really get hot enough for it to die out. I mean, we get some hot periods, but for the most part, our temperatures are pretty mild, and Poa annua can survive. There's a YouTube guy that always has problems with Poa annua, and I don't know why he can't take care of it if he's, such a great YouTube guy and knows so much, but he always has Poa, and he's always fighting it. I haven't had Poa for 2 years. My backyard, different story. I've had Poa, but I did the manual removal on it. I keep an eye on my yard, and as soon as I see Poa annua, I get out there with my weed puller. I pull that stuff out, I fill the hole, and I might put a little seed down if it's a big hole or whatever, or I just let the grass recover over it. And Kentucky bluegrass recovers and repairs pretty quickly and easily. So that's kind of what I do for Poa annua. Now, so this is Barricade, and this is something you can spray on your lawn, and it's going to last for 4 to 6 months. This is the granular form of Barricade, I believe it is, Dimension. And the only difference is it's granular. You can spread it down with a hand spreader. You don't have to spray it. And it's going to give you the same effects. I actually have some of this. I haven't used any of this kind of stuff for probably 3 years. I actually don't use any pre-emergent, but I do use something else, and that's going to be in the slides here as well. But this you can put down, and it's going to give you the same coverage as a liquid. I think this is a 50-pound bag, and it's like $50. It's not that bad. Anyway, so this will work as well for your weed prevention. And we're just talking about weed prevention right now. This doesn't kill existing weeds. If you have existing weeds in your lawn, it's not going to kill your existing weeds. So these pictures here are kind of from my Poa annua video I did. The only reason I have the plant growth regulator up here is a new is a plant growth regulator that slows down your turf grass growth. I should be using it because my grass grows so quick and I can't keep on top of mowing it, but I was going to use it this year, but I never did. It's a little pricey, but what it does do is it doesn't kill POA, but it does suppress it. So using this with a good pre-emergent is two great ways to prevent POA annua from showing up in your yard. I can't say there's nothing that's going to stop it 100%, but this is a really good, way to battle it and fight it. The best thing to do is if you do see some POA annua coming in your yard and you've done these measures, is to get out there and pull it. As soon as you see it, pull it. And I walk my lawn at least 3 times looking around to see what I got in there. How many weeds do I have? Do I have any weeds? I mean, I had 1 weed in my front yard when I sprayed the Tenacity 3 or 4 weeks ago, whatever it was. It's gone now, but it was one of those clover type weeds, and it died off really quick. So that worked really well. So I'm only showing the new for the whole reason of it will. There's some data here. Here it is. This is the company's data. So you have to take it with a grain of salt, because one of the other things we've talked about is we've talked about fertilizer companies and how their information they really put out on their products are very inaccurate and sometimes not even true. I've never used Anu for suppressing, but it clearly says right here that it supports seed head suppression right here. And further on in the slide here, I don't know if it's right here, but it says how it works with, yeah, here it is. It says a new EZ is unique and much stronger on POA species, and it's basically suppresses POA in mixed species and greens and fairways and stuff like that. So this is just the information from the bag. This is Dimension. It's another product like Barricade. You can also get this in granular form. And basically whenever you're looking at buying these weed prevention products, you're just looking for the active ingredient. And I forget what the active ingredient is on this, but that's why I like this site, because I can go to their PDF, I can look at the information, I can see what their active ingredient is, and I could probably find a product at Home Depot or Lowe's. You don't have to go and buy all these different products online. I'm just showing these because I'm just trying to show you the name brands of some products. The biggest things are the active ingredients. And I'm not remembering exactly what the active ingredient was in this, because I don't use it, and the only reason I don't use it is because I don't really have a weed problem, and like I said, I use a different product for my weeds and POA and all that stuff. But this is going to help against POA annua germinating, getting in your yard, and it's something you need to put down like right now. In the next couple of weeks, because POA annua is going to start popping up depending upon what your temperatures are in your area. But as soon as the temperatures start getting back down in your soil temperatures start getting down in the 60s, like mid 60s, 65, something like that, POA annua and your fall weeds are going to start coming in. Rule of thumb is you want to do a good pre-emergent in the spring and in the fall. I have a product on here I'm going to show you that you can use in between as kind of something to help out. But these are products, again, you don't want to use if you're doing any kind of reseeding. If you're trying to fix a patch of bad grass in your yard, your seed's not going to germinate using these products. These totally will prevent things from rooting and starting off and growing. Oh, pause. So This is a product I was talking about that you could use in between. This is a pre and a post-emergent type product, sulfentrazone. I have used this, and this is something that's going to help fight against POA. If your summers are mild, you can get some POA to grow in. And this is just kind of something I use really quick in between a pre-emergent I laid in the spring and before I lay my fall pre-emergent. This is something I'll lay in maybe June, mid-June, to help with POA suppression and preventing POA from getting in my yard. Now, I haven't used this in a while, but I have used it, and it is a good POA prevention part of your attack on POA. And if you have a bad case of POA, this is a really great program. Get on prodiamine and Barricade. Those two products are going to really help you fight the battle, because POA is a cool season weed, and it really is going to come in the spring and the fall the most. It's supposed to die off in the summertime because it doesn't like the heat, but like I said, in Western Washington, we don't always get hot enough temperatures to actually kill it off, and it will just grow all year long, and it will just get worse and worse and worse. So that's why this program is really important to help just attack POA annua. So sulfentrazone, you can get it here. Read the label, check out the PDF on domyown.com. Do your research. What kind of grass do you have? Is this going to be okay on your grass? Like I said, I use tenacity. Vine fescue and bent grass, going to either damage it or kill it. Sorry. So Spectracide and Bio Advanced are my two main products I like to get from Lowe's or Home Depot. One or the other will have it. Both may have it. I don't know. This is a good weed stop right here. I don't really use any granular because I feel you don't get as good use or results from granular. Now, granular works and all that kind of stuff, but on a weed stop or weed control, the granule needs to actually land on the weed that it's attacking, and it needs to get absorbed into that plant. And if it's not spread and hitting those weeds, it's not going to kill it. So this is why I like to use spray, and I do foliar applications on almost everything. There's very little that I apply granularly. So you can get this in a bottle. You can get this in a hose-in spray bottle form. And this is weed stop, so this has a pre-emergent in it. I would have to read the label to see what kind. I used to know exactly which pre-emergent. It has prodiamine or Barricade or something like that in it. And it's actually got weed killer as well. So these kinds of products can be good for, see, it says right here, it's got crabgrass prevention. It's a good thing to use in May to start helping with crabgrass that's going to come in June in the warmer seasons and stuff like that. But this is something you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's. You don't have to order it online. A lot of products you don't have to go and order online. If you want a specific type of a product, like in Washington, we can't get hardly anything here. If I order from Do My Own, I can get it shipped in. Do My Own also tells me where they can't sell it to, and there are products that we can't get here. But so Spectracide, any kind of Spectracide product I like to use, whether it's a weed prevention, crabgrass killer, weed and feed, all those sorts of things. I definitely recommend using it, but again, I say spray them, do a liquid, because you just get so much better coverage. It's easier to control the coverage, and you're going to get a better result, I feel. But you can use granular. Granular is there to work. Ethofumicate, another POA killer. So this is supposed to actually kill the POA when it's actually you see it. It's visual. It's growing. I have mixed opinions on how well it works. It's maybe a 75% success rate on this. It's hit or miss. Now this is the straight form of ethofumicate, and again on domyown.com you could look at the label and read it to see what kinds of grass it works on, how to apply it, when to apply it. A lot of these products you don't want to apply in the dead heat of summer when it's like 90 plus and that sort of thing. So ethofumicate, post-emergent weed killer. It will kill other weeds as well that are in your yard. So it's great to use. So ethofumicate, great for attacking POA. It may or may not work, probably about 75%. You might need to do a couple of applications on it. Okay, so this is one of the main products I use right here, Tenacity. And I think I've already stated a million times why I use it. Kills bent grass. And bent grass, because I can't mow frequently enough, I get clumping on my putting green when I mow it, like Monday when I mowed it after being a week since my last mow. And I end up using my blower and blowing the clumps out, and it ends up in my Kentucky bluegrass. And then in my Kentucky bluegrass, I start getting bent grass growing. So that's my big thing about using Tenacity. Last winter, I used it a lot to kill the bent grass, and it worked really, really well. But this also is what helped me prevent POA from growing in my yard. I got zero, I don't know if I could say zero. I may have got one or two small things going, but I got rid of them very quickly. I went out there and I pulled them, and I didn't see them again. POA is almost impossible to 100% just not have pop up. It's a really strong weed grass. So I'm going to start using more Tenacity right now because I use it as my pre-emergent for POA, and I use it to kill my bent grass. And I'm trying to do some reshaping on my putting green. I'm going to do some changes to my putting green because I'm having some issues with it. So Tenacity, I really like to use, but it will harm fine fescue. It will bleach it out. And the red creeping fescue I have in my backyard was proof of that. I sprayed it on it just to show, but also to show the recovery on it, because your grass will recover from Tenacity application, but it is going to show bleaching. Kentucky bluegrass, no problem at all. I've been using Tenacity for 2 years on my Kentucky bluegrass, and I've never seen any bleaching in my Kentucky bluegrass with this. Ryegrass, I don't have wiregrass. I don't care for ryegrass, so I don't really know how your grass is going to react with that. I only know what I have and what the label says. So again, reading the label is really important for whatever grass type you have. And I talk about cool season grasses. If you're in a warm season area where you use Bermuda and warm season grasses, you definitely have to read labels. Just like if you're a guy that watches a lot of YouTube channels and you're watching a guy that's taking care of warm season grass and he's telling you like to use Celsius, or I don't even know all the different names and stuff like that. You got to watch out, because if you put something like that on your cool season grass, it's just going to kill it. So this is why, if you're watching a guy talk about something, you also need to do the research yourself so that you know whether it's going to hurt your lawn or not. There's a reason why we don't have Celsius in Western Washington in any stores, because nobody has warm season grass out here. Oh, except me. I have Bermuda grass in my backyard. I have an update on that too. But Tenacity, I really like this. It really helps me control POA. and my bent grass. And those are my two things I use it for. It's great pre-emergent, post-emergent. It works on both, but then you can use this while seeding. So if you're going to do any kind of reseeding, overseeding, a new project, whatever, you can spray Tenacity, pre-emergent, post-emergent. Great to keep weeds out and to kill the ones that are already there. It only lasts about 3 weeks though, so the coverage isn't the greatest. But after 3 weeks, a couple of mows on your lawn, you can start using regular weed killers, those sorts of things to attack weeds and whatever. Again, like I say, read the labels, because the labels are very, very important so that you understand how they're going to work and react with your yard and your grass type. Tenacity is my go-to for my yard, just for, many main reasons. So this is the Bio Advanced 5-in-1. This is the product I use mainly because I like Bio Advanced. I like Bio Advanced everything, whether it's moss out, fertilizer, weed killer, pre-emergent, post-emergent, all those sorts of things. I like it. This product right here is perfect to lay in the spring or the fall before your weeds start coming in. Now you have to apply this stuff before the weeds are going to start germinating. And like I said, if you didn't lay it in the spring, you probably got some weeds, you probably got some crabgrass. All these things grow at different times of the year. And that's why spring pre-emergents are really important. And I would say this would be the best thing to pick up at Home Depot or Lowe's right here. It's 5-in-1. It prevents, it kills, and it also takes care of crabgrass. And it also says it lasts for up to 6 months. And I believe it also has some fertilizer in it and stuff like that. This is just basically a homeowner's, gift to lawn care, as far as I see, as an easy product to take and put down. This is a granular form right here. It's a bag. It's going to work. The biggest thing is about the pre-emergent type properties. For post-emergent, it is hit or miss, because again, the granular, it has to hit the weed that it's being applied to and has to be absorbed into that weed. Spraying is much better. You can get this in liquid form and spray this on your lawn. That's what I do. I used to use this product, but because I've kind of advanced on into, having a putting green and, Kentucky bluegrass, and I'm trying to control things in a little different manner. My lawn is not a normal, regular homeowner's type lawn where you're just, mowing it 2 inches. You're just trying to prevent weeds. You're just trying to prevent crabgrass and that sort of stuff. You're not really into low mowing, real mowing, having a 1/4 inch cut, having a putting green. You're not into all that stuff, which is totally fine. This is a great product to use. This is what I would use. This is what I used to use. And I just like all Bio Advanced products. I've had success. I don't use any Scott's products, and I doubt you'll even see a Scott's product on my thing here. I don't promote anything either. I only say I like this product here because I've used it. I like it. I think it's a great product. But you can use Spectracide. You can use Scott's if you want. There's a specific reason I don't use Scott's, and I'm not going to get into it, but I don't use Scott's. Anything. Just me. So this is really good here. This is kind of talking about the active ingredients, and this is why it works so well. It's got 2,4-D, quinclorac, dicamba, dithiopyr. That's your dithiopyr, or dithiopyr, whatever. That's your pre-emergent. I forget, I think it's the quinclorac is the crabgrass. 2,4-D is a really great weed killer. Dicamba, maybe that's the crabgrass one. I don't know. I don't even really care. I mean, when I'm looking at products, I read the labels, I look for the active ingredients. These active ingredients, this is a great combination of active ingredients to prevent and kill crabgrass, weeds, pre and post emergent. That's just the bottom line. These are great products to use. Now, there are some other products that are going to be better for a more specific type of weed that some of these don't cover, because there are some weeds that just won't die from these. So that's why it's important to kind of know and read the label. I think that's all I have for this. This is a Spectracide again, and this has got 5 months of weed control. Look at that, 200 plus weeds. Won't harm your lawn. And this will also help against POA annua germination. So this is a great product to use as well. Spectracide and BioAdvanced. That's the end of that for weed killer. So I just have another time lapse of my Bermuda grass. You know, I'm really liking this Bermuda grass. I wish it was growing quicker and faster. You know, I did some replacement of these bare spots that I sprayed with glyphosate and killed off. So I came in, I had some leftover of my soil mix that I made, and I showed in a different video. I made my own topsoil using compost, sand, and steer manure. And I sifted it with my vibrating sifter that I have. And that works really well. I showed the video on that. And basically all I'm trying to do here, as I was explaining before, there is a lot of rocks in this area here. And, you know, I discussed why, because, you know, where I live by the water, and this area used to be covered in water a long time ago and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of rocks in here. So I wanted to get this topsoil on it, because as this grows, I want to be able to reel mow this really low. I've already reel mowed it once, and man, it was scary because of all the rocks. I mean, I'm actually out there hand picking out rocks all the time. But now that I've covered it with this topsoil, you know, I feel a little bit better about it. And I'm just trying to get this level and just to fill in. You know, I planted this Bermuda grass last November, and so here's the time lapse going after doing all that, just to kind of show what's going on. It's actually a terrible time lapse. I don't know what happened with my cameras and my video and all that kind of stuff, but it just didn't go like I wanted to. And I've been so busy, I just didn't have a lot of time to mess with it. I tried to get it going quicker so it would run through, but yeah, it's terrible, but whatever. The point is, you know, this is Bermuda grass. I'm in Western Washington. This is the hottest spot of my yard. And as you see here, it gets a lot of sun, and it doesn't get a lot of wind or cool. And this front area right down here, it's growing really well because that gets the most sun. Back here, it doesn't get as much sun. So that's basically that. I just used I explained before, a pineapple coring tool that I got at Walmart. You know, my time lapse down here, it shows the date and time and stuff like that too. I try to reference that in all my videos so you kind of see the amount of time they go over. But I used the pineapple core because I could use a little rubber mallet and pound it into the ground to take these cores out, instead of having to use my hand and, you know, ruin my palm and all that kind of stuff from having to push down on it, you know, 100 times to get these plugs in. And it was really easy because I just pounded in the ground deep enough for those plugs to go in. I put the plugs in there and I called it good. It was a really good tight fit. They fit in really well. So that's that. This time lapse here is just another time lapse of this area. And it's terrible too, because you see here, this is my backyard. It doesn't get a lot of sun. And Down here is that area that I'm really having a problem with germinating. So I had this sprinkler head way down here, and then I have another one up here. Then I have two back over here. I have one here, and I have one back over here, wherever. Anyways, all those, man, they were just hammering this area. And you can see with the time lapse that it literally gets no sun. I mean, these are time lapses through the day, and if it gets any sun, it's maybe 30 minutes, and that's it. And so I took that sprinkler out down here, and I'm starting to actually see some germination start happening down here. It's starting to dry out. I just didn't really pay attention to, you know, the conditions. And that's one of the things I've talked about. You need to know what's going on in your yard. You know, you need to monitor your sprinklers. You know, you need to know how much water you're getting in all the areas of your lawn. I added the sprinkler actually because I thought I wasn't getting enough water over here, and then I just actually ruined it and made it so I was getting too much. This is kind of just showing, this is after the tenacity. You see that was the damage that the tenacity did to this area. Again, I don't have a current picture. It's hard enough to see, so you can't really tell, but this is actually really starting to fill in. The the Kentucky bluegrass is starting to fill in this area right here and make that look really good. So like normal, I'm just kind of going on about things and talking about things. So this is my front yard, and I'm just going to show this. This is kind of a quick time lapse, but this is my putting green, and this is probably a 2-month time lapse, and you're going to see here, right there. So this whole area right here of my putting green, this all the way up through along here, is all area that I added. You know, the existing part of my putting green, which was this main area back up here, you know, it's great, it grows great and all that kind of stuff. But man, my recommendation is don't add on. If you have a putting green and you want to add on to it, don't do it. I feel like I'm going to have to redo my whole putting green just to fix this one area. I've tried 3 times to fix this area right here so this wouldn't happen. And what's happening is it's just getting hammered by my reel mower, scalping it, tearing it up, and all that sort of stuff. And you can see here, you know, it repairs pretty well. This is bent grass. Bent grass is creeping, it's rhizomes. It does fill back in and it does repair. And one of the main things I found out is when I changed my bed knife was there was something different about it. It wasn't cutting the same way it was it was cutting great, but it seemed like it was cutting lower than my old bed knife, my original bed knife. And I had to replace that because I damaged it. And I don't even see rocks, and next thing you know, you hear your reel mower hit a rock, and I can't even find the rock that it hit. I don't know where some of these rocks come from, but rocks and reel mowers just don't mix. So anyways, I'm not fixing any of these areas right now because I'm going to do some major replacing on these areas. I'm going Kentucky bluegrass back to the way it was before because I really need a turnaround area. It was stupid of me to take this out when I did. And I've just been having nothing but problems since I've done that. So I'm going back to Kentucky bluegrass. I'm gonna have to make my putting green just a little bit smaller. And just remember, I put my putting green as a test. I thought it was gonna be really hard and really difficult, you know, watching YouTube videos. And what I found was it was the greatest thing I ever did. The most difficult thing about it is affording a reel mower that cuts low enough to make it look really good. You know, I have videos of me putting on this, you know, putting green, and it works really, really well. So I'm just really sad about. I wish this area wouldn't do this, but it does. And I literally have to kind of lift the mower up as I go over that area to stop it from scalping and damaging it like that. And it really has to do with just the layout of my lawn over here, because this is a dip down, and when I turn around and all that kind of stuff with the mower, you know, it just digs down into it. So, but it does repair. The only other thing to this is, you know, all along this edge here, I'd sprayed tenacity, and I didn't get a video of my front yard, the tenacity and the redefining of the green I've kind of done, and killing the bent grass in my bluegrass, but it's all recovered. The bent grass is dead and gone, and this redefining of the putting green edge has really gotten a lot better. I could go back to this just really quick and kind of show you. So as you can see here, this whole area was brown. This actually isn't brown. This is actually just the cut line between the 1/4 inch and the 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters. I'm actually cutting at 3.5 millimeters right now, because I'm trying to get this area to grow back in right here. This is my bad spot, but look at the rest of my putting green. Perfectly great, good, nice and normal. Great striping. But this whole area, all along up here, all the way up here and down through here, I added after I'd already established a putting green, and it was just terrible. It was terrible. I shouldn't have done it. Last, I'm going to talk about the evapotranspiration. I can't tell as everything's blue. You know, I only show this because this is what you use if it's really hot, to let you know maybe how much more watering you need to do. The numbers on here, you know, right now we're at 0.14 for the day. So that's like 1/10 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch of evapotranspiration you're getting. You know, it's just the amount of water that you're losing in your soil, basically. You know, what's the evaporating out, and the grass is transpiring. So this is just kind of a good thing to use in the summertime when it's really hot. Last week our numbers were a little high. You know, they were like 1.5, which means you're losing 1.5 inches a week in moisture. And you probably need to re-add that in, because that's why your grass is going to start browning if you're not increasing your watering times and that sort of stuff. So I just show the evapotranspiration just to kind of show you how it changes week after week, day after day. You know, this is the daily at 1.4. I can go, let's see if I can find it. Uh-oh. Hold on a second here, I gotta fix this. Oh, that's not even the right page. Let's see. Maybe it's right here? Yeah, here it is. So I can change this to the weekly. And right now the weekly is 1.04 inches. This is the amount of transpiration we're gonna get in our soils. So I think it's supposed to get warm. It's really cool right now. It actually was overcast most of the day yesterday. But we also have fires going on, smoke and all that kind of stuff. Just normal, typical poor management of the forest out here. But gonna need to add a little extra water this week. I actually have my sprinklers turned off right now. So I probably need to kill this thing. Just show you my putting green. You know, this is kind of why I did it. This is kind of just a little close up. Look at how sweet that ball rolls. To me, it's not difficult at all. Like I said, the biggest thing about a putting green is getting the mower. If you have a hobby you want to take on and you can afford getting a $3,000 mower, or I was just looking at mowers because I'm thinking about getting another one. I believe I forgot the brand of it, Rolex. I think the Rolex cuts to 1/8 of an inch, which is just a little bit higher than what this is. But 1/8 of an inch is a really short cut. California trimmer only goes to 1/4 of an inch, and I didn't like that cut height at all on my putting green. That's why I got rid of it. I really like this level, and you can see the ball it rolls for days. When it's even when it's kind of wet, it still rolls really, really well. But like I say, in having a putting green, just having this kind of grass, I mean, man, I would love to have my whole yard bent grass and just mow it. But you'd have to put a lot of work into it, because the biggest part of putting a putting green is getting it level. Because when you mow this low, scalping is a big issue. You can't have huge changes, mounds, high spot, low spots. That's like, the problem I'm having over here, with my grass. It's just not right. So I'm getting scalping and tearing that up. The original part of my putting green, when I put it in, very nice, very level, very compact. Well, actually, it's pretty soft. I can actually run my hose on this. I've been meaning to get a video of it, but I can put my hose down on this, turn it full blast and run it, and the water just soaks right into this. It doesn't pool, it doesn't puddle. It actually just gets absorbed down into this ground because it's just so well drained and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to end off here with, one of my favorite things, SpaceX launch. I love the roar of a missile. I love the roar of, screaming airplanes, F-18, F-35, whatever. I loved it when I was in the Navy and I worked on planes. And being at the launch of a SpaceX, if you ever get a chance to do that, man, it's just, 2 minutes of power. And that's what I like, is the power. I love the power of a train. When you hear it pumping and it's, fully loaded down. To me, I love that power. That's why I like driving a truck. I always wanted to do it when I was a kid. And I just love the power. I love pulling, a heavy trailer uphill, 6th gear, 7th gear, whatever. So anyways, I went long as always. I didn't even get to all my slides that I was going to show and talk about, but I just wanted to get some more information out to you guys. I know there's a couple people that were going to watch this to get some information on doing some yard renovation and things like that. And then, the other information I try to put in there to help other people. I'm just trying to help that new guy that's trying to get the right information. I was that guy 3 years ago, and I was really kind of angry that I was led down the wrong road of information on doing my yard and making it look good. I've totally changed everything I do and how I do it. I spend less than $80 for 2 years of fertilizer on my lawn. I don't use all this stuff that people tell you it's going to help your lawn and it's going to make your lawn look great, but it actually has nothing to do with making your lawn look great. There's a lot of products you put on your lawn that you will never see a response in turf grass appearance, color, or anything that people are telling you to add to your lawn, and you're paying big money for it. A lot of these products are just making people money, and that's fine. To me, it's crazy, but if you want to spend $60 on a bottle of fertilizer that you feel is going to make your lawn look green, when you can probably use other products for half the money and for a long period of time and get the same result, that's fine. What you do with your money is your business. I'm just trying to provide a real, more economical way of taking care of your lawn and having it look great. And I'm trying to also help you understand why you're going to get some variations in colors from the different levels of cut of height of your lawn. My lawn, the neighbor's lawn, all that sort of stuff. My neighbor Doug across the street, when we do his yard's probably going to look darker than mine because he's going to cut his at 1.5 inches or something like that. And I'm going to have him on a great fertilizer program. It's not going to cost him hardly any money. And he's going to have a great looking lawn. I can't wait to do that project and show you how it turns out. Anyways, hope you got something good out of this. Thanks for watching. Take care. And I will be back probably with another video at some point.